Welcome back, everyone, to Talking Devils with Keane, Franey, and Phil Marsh, brought to you by talkingthedevils.co.uk. And this is our Friday podcast, and we're here to talk all things Manchester United, all the latest news, transfer news, and I don't know if you know, but the Premier League season is restarting this weekend. Manchester United versus Leeds. It is the big one, so we've plenty of talking points to talk about this evening, and we've a lot of discussion points here today. First of all, Phil, haven't seen you since last week. How you've been keeping?
Yeah, all good, thank you, mate. Had a good week. Obviously, I'm not in work at the moment, so just spending time with the family and getting to do a little bit of stuff that I like doing, golf and other little bits and bobs. But yeah, all good from my end, mate.
That's good. That's good. I'm fine myself. Literally, big weekend this weekend. Obviously, United against Leeds. I've been like yourself. I've actually been off work all week myself too, to kind of really give myself a good build up and do as much as I can this week to get it all done before I make the trip to Manchester for the game. So yeah, no complaints on my end. Even fully recovered from the COVID-19 vaccine as well. So though it's all systems go, looking ahead to Old Trafford on Saturday. And first of all, just for viewers as well, if we're watching this here for the first time, do hit a like on the video, subscribe below Phil, and hit that bell notification button. You will get a notification every time myself or Wayne goes live with the podcasts each week. So by all means, drop the subscribe button, and you will get all them notifications. Phil, first of all, before we kind of dive into Manchester United and kind of our season and kind of what prospects we kind of have, obviously this week it was a big occasion for United fans. It was the 50th birthday of a certain captain I was named after, Mr. Roy Keane. Obviously, fantastic player for Manchester United, great captain, great leader for both club and country. Really, I know from being Irish, from my point of view, done a lot of great things for our country as a player. Just talk to us just about Roy Keane and your time at the football club and kind of how you got on with him.
Roy was a massive character. I mean, obviously he was the captain of the club. He led by example on and off the field. And on a personal level, I got to know Roy quite well after the crash. Spoke a little bit about that last week, and
yeah,
he came and visited me in hospital and stuff. And the way he was with me was unbelievable. So obviously, I only have positive things to say about Roy. He probably splits opinion on other players or fans, as you would do with any player. But for me, I just think he was a fantastic guy, a great captain, a winner, and he led by example, as I said, especially on the pitch. But off the pitch, he was, do anything to win. And as I say, he was a character. But, inevitably, that's the mentality you've got to have if you want to sort of make it at the top level. And I think Keane's a sort of, prime example of that.
Definitely. I think one thing about Roy Keane, he never accepted any lower standards. Like, I remember, I think you actually told me the story about Rio Ferdinand when he made that, his first training session come to Manchester United from Leeds, and like Rio made that first misplaced pass. Roy Keane pulls him aside, like, look, you're at Manchester United now. We don't accept that here. And like Roy Keane just had kind of the best standards, and he was someone who epitomized, when he wore that shirt, he really epitomized the manager, I think, as well, when he was on the football pitch, in terms of demanding the best, being that leader and being that kind of focal point. He almost echoed the manager in that respect when he was on the football pitch. He was kind of like, he lived and breathed United, just like Sir Alex. And I think someone who, if you look at kind of a midfield player, a central midfield player, he had absolutely everything. He could tackle, he could shoot, he could drive forward the ball. He could sit back in between the two centre halves if needs be, to provide that bit of protection. Like he had, I think he was like the complete midfield player. And like, look, if I just look from my own point of view with Ireland as well, like he's someone who was, especially in around the time from like 98 till 2002, someone who helped drag our country to great results. And I always think from my side, what could have been, if Saipan didn't happen, what could have been from our side. We had a very good World Cup without him, but I think it could have been even greater, if he was there with us. But for me, absolute legend of the football club, and there's someone when you look at captains in Premier League history, he's not if the one of the greatest, or if not the greatest, captain in Premier League history. That there is a debate there. There's a lot of great captains that have won the Premier League, but for me, absolute model professional and someone who just epitomises Manchester United.
100%. He's up there for me, 100%. And it's funny you should say that. I was just thinking back then to the first time I actually ever played with him. He played in a reserve game one time, coming back from injury, and he was playing. I was playing on the right hand side of a midfield four, and Keane was in the middle. And I can't remember who he was playing against, but I just remember I got the ball this one particular time, and I got the ball, knocked it out my feet, and I hit a sort of Hollywood pass diagonal straight across. It was a great pass, and I was proper made up with myself, and I looked round, and Keane was piercing a hole through me, and he looked at me and said, "Don't you ever do that ever again." And I was thinking, what have I done wrong? I thought it was a good pass type of thing. And anyway, carried on with the game. And then at half time, he sort of pulled me and was just like, "Listen," he said, "them kind of passes," he said, "they're too risky when you get into the first team." He said, "We keep it simple." Because I think obviously Roy must have just felt as though he was on in the midfield, and I could have just maybe slipped it inside to him. And I've obviously gone for a sort of Hollywood pass, which was a little bit risky. And I think what it was just like a little test and a little sort of challenge for me to sort of, accept that he was right in what he was saying, and that, he was giving me that sort of bit of information for when I do eventually, if I get into the first team, then, you keep it simple, you play the more sort of safe pass, you move the ball nice and quick, short and sharp. And I think that was something that stuck with me. And I don't think it was in a bad way to say, like, you never play a long ball or whatever, but I just think that was the way Keane was, and he would drop things in and say things to players at certain times and do things what would make you think you'd be questioning yourself. But then obviously when you sort of see the bigger picture and you understand where he's coming from, it made sense. And for me, I understood, obviously, after him speaking to me and explaining what he meant and his side of the situation. And I think that was great. And what he used to do and the way he was with some of the younger kids at times, maybe overstepped the line. But for me, my personal experience with him was amazing. And I know I can't speak highly enough of him. I love him as a pundit. I think he's great. He doesn't hold back. He speaks from the heart. He says everything that he wants to say. And that's what I love about him. So, yeah.
And like that situation there as well, Phil. Like, I think when you look at the kind of the advice he's giving you, is like, look at the bigger picture, but also pick your moments. Like, in terms of, yes, the Hollywood pass is always great to see, and they're easy on the eye. But when you look at the style of the first team in around that time, it was always quick, sharp, keep the tempo flowing, and do sustain attacks. Yes, the Hollywood pass is brilliant, but when you look at Manchester United back in that time, it was a case of they'll put teams under pressure, make them wilt, and then when that opportunity comes, then play the Hollywood pass if needed. But it was all about the pressure and sustaining attacks.
Exactly, yeah. And I think, to be honest, what he was also saying was, listen, we've got other players who can do them kind of goals. For example, who used to nickname him Satnav because he was that good and he could pick a pass. I think what he was just saying was, if you do ever get into the first team and stuff, you don't want to be trying to overcomplicate things and do things maybe that are a little bit out of your comfort zone straight away. Build your confidence up, get your nice easy passes in, move the ball, and then do your other stuff in the attacking half. And that was something that I obviously took on board, and it was great just to have that little chat with him, and I knew it wasn't anything personal. I'd at the time, when you're in the heat of the moment and you're in the game and stuff, you sort of a little bit sort of confused and a bit angry maybe that you've played a ball and it's he's looked at it in a different way. But when you, as you say, speak to him after and you see the bigger picture, it was something he just wanted the best for me, really, and I appreciated that from someone like him as well. It was great.
And it was always like, I always hear from players who've played with Roy, he was always kind of a good person in the dressing room to go to for advice. Like even like if the people were struggling, let's say on the pitch, but also off it too. And like you've obviously highlighted your experiences kind of with him in terms of when you had your accident. Roy Keane was one of the first people to be there for you, and he came to visit you in the hospital at that time. So like obviously, not just as a football player, as a leader, but from a humanistic standpoint, he's spot on. And again, it's someone who, when you show leadership by example, he literally was that in more ways than one.
Yeah, he was, and as I say, not just a great footballer, a great person, and somebody, you know, a lot of young players, he wouldn't be the first person you'd choose to maybe go up to and try and, you know, speak to, because he was quite a volatile character. But I think he also had that soft side to him, and you know, when you did catch him and you had them moments where you'd speak to him on a level, he was great. And being the captain of the club, and you know, the way he performed every week on the pitch, he was somebody who, you know, everybody at the club had the utmost respect for him. And I think even when he did sort of, you know, give a few players, you know, a bit of a rollicking, or, you know, it was only in their best interest, and he just wanted to do everything in his power to make the club as successful as it was. And, you know, the results were there for everyone to see when he was the captain, you know, the club, and sort of the longevity of how good it was fantastic.
Yeah, and he's someone who I think he always done everything kind of within the best interests of the team. I think that's obviously very important when you're at a big club like Manchester United. When you're the captain, you're not just there as part of the playing staff. You're there as a leader, and you have to be kind of covering everything, and you have to know everyone by name. You have to be that, you know, that kind of leader within the squad and within the football club. So he was definitely someone who epitomized that. Phil, in terms of like interactions you've had, you've told us many stories with regards to during your recovery, but during your kind of days as part of the playing squad, did you have any other particular interactions with Roy Keane?
Yeah, so to be honest, one of my favourite stories that I've got from my time at the club was this one particular day. I'd been to training as I normally do, and you know, got a shower, been for some food, and then what used to happen was when you used to get your wages, there was a woman on reception, Kath, absolutely loved the bones of Kath. She's an amazing woman, and she would give you your wage slips on the way out. So this particular day, I've came down, and you know, Kath's asking me how my day's been and what I'm up to in the afternoon as she's fanning through the wage slips. And we're just having a little chat, and she just gave me my wage slip as she normally did, and wished me, you know, a good afternoon, and I'll see you in the morning. I just took my wage slip and walked out the doors, said bye, and got into my car. So I've just obviously sat in my car, just sort of getting all my stuff sorted, and then that particular day, I just thought I'll open my wage slip and see like what's going on for this month. Playing the reserves and stuff, you get bonuses and all that kind of thing. But you know, this particular day, I just thought, I'll open it here and see what's going on. And as I opened the wage slip and sort of peeled back the letter, I realised straight away it wasn't my wage slip, because as I opened it, the amount of bonuses that were on it was far too many for what I usually get. And as I looked at the net pay, it was sort of, well, I can't even remember how much it was, but it was certainly a lot more than what I was on, let's put it that way. So I was a little bit like flustered and thinking, oh, this isn't mine, I wonder whose it is. And yeah, it was Roy Keane's wage slip. So you can imagine my heart sunk, and I was just thinking, oh, of anyone's wage slips to open, I've opened Keane's wage slip. And obviously realised, and so I got out my car and sort of started walking back to Carrington. Now Carrington's glass windows, so you can see through into the reception area. And as I'm walking back down, and my heart's racing, I'm thinking, oh my God, I've just opened Keane's wage slips. Roy Keane was literally stood with Kath waiting for his wage slip. So I've walked through the doors, Keane's stood there waiting, and I'm thinking, his wage slip's not there because I've got it in my hand. And Kath sort of fanning through these wage slips, And I just sort of interrupted and said, Kath, I said, I'm really sorry. I said, I think you've given me the wrong wage slip. And she said, oh, she went, that's not Roy's, is it? I can't find Roy's anywhere. And I said, oh, I don't know. I said, obviously I knew it was, but I was like, oh, I don't know. It might be. So I give it back, and she went, oh yeah. She went, that's Roy's. She went, I'm really sorry. She went, it's my fault. Don't worry about it. So she gave Roy the wage slip, and she said, bear with me, Phil. She went, I'll get yours now for your love. I'm really sorry. So I'm stood there like absolutely bricking it, and Keno's not gone. Keno's just stood there waiting. He's not left. He's been given his wage slip and he's not gone. He's stayed and stood behind me as I'm waiting for mine. So I'm thinking, oh my God. So Kat's fanning through, gets me wage slip. She went, I'm really sorry. She went, that's my fault. I do apologise. And then as I turned to walk away, Keane just put his arm around me and started walking out the doors with me. So at this point, I'm absolutely like shitting myself. And I'm thinking, what is he going to say to me? And he put his arm around me and he said, listen, he said, did you have a look, man? And I said, I was like, and I was like, yeah, a little bit. But I said, I realised it wasn't mine. And he went, it's all right, just tell me. He said, you can tell me, did you have a look? And I said, yeah, I said, I did, but I realised it wasn't mine straight away. So I just came straight back in. And then he sort of like had a bit of a laugh and a joke. And he said, listen, he said, at the end of the day, he said, that's part and parcel of the job. He said, he said, that's not what I'm about. He said, I'm here for success and for winning trophies. He said, that's just, a sort of bonus. He said, and, he said, if you carry on playing the way you are, he said, you'll be on that kind of money one day. He said, have a good afternoon, and sent me on my way. And I ended up going back to my car. And honestly, I was like, must have sat there for about 15 minutes, like, because I was just so like, sort of, what the hell's just gone on there? Couldn't believe it. And obviously it could have gone one or two ways. In my head, I'd played it out. He's going to go mad at me because now I know how much he earns and I know what kind of money he's bringing home each month or whatever. And it didn't. He was fantastic with me and he was great. And he just sort of laughed it off and, was I took it amazingly. And for me, it was something that I always sort of look back on and have to laugh, really, because, as I say, it could have gone down a lot differently. I think, if the team hadn't been playing too well and he was in a bit of a grump and it had caught him on a bad day, it might have ended differently to that. But thankfully, it was, one of them moments where he'd been in a, good mood, or he just, wouldn't have wanted to, make me feel bad, because it was just a genuine mistake, really. And, that was the kind of person he was. And it was a great little story that I've shared with quite a few of my close friends and family.
And like, when you think about the situation, you mentioned it, like you obviously seen his wages and whatever, but then the way he laughs it off, and then also like proceeds then to give you them words of encouragement, like that, for me, like that just shows the class of him. Do you know, like in that regard, like he obviously seen there was a mishap, knew it wasn't your fault, and like obviously he makes a joke out of it, but then also like, proceeds, because obviously you were a young player in the reserves at that time, he proceeds then to give you them words for encouragement, which, look, for you as well, you played out scenario in your head on the way back into Carrington, but it almost gives you a lift then, because the captain, like, of the first team, Roy Keane, is giving you them words of encouragement just after the situation you've been playing in your head before you gave the wage slip back.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I went home that day and I was like buzzing. I couldn't believe it. It was so, I could have had a, bad day at training, might not, done well or whatever. And that little particular scenario just gave me that sort of made me day type of thing. To him, it was nothing. But for me, having that sort of like scenario and the way it played out, for me, it just gave me, a little lift and a bit of confidence that someone of Roy's stature would sort of deal with that kind of situation in the way he did, and not obviously, blow his lid and start ranting and raving about something that was out of my control, really. So just giving me a bit of a lift, and obviously made me have even more respect than I already had for him, because, you know, as I say, being the captain, he didn't have to say what he said. He didn't have to react in the way he did, but he did do that. And as I say, for me, he's somebody who leads by example. And although at times he maybe did overstep the mark, as I say, with certain players and stuff, for me, he did that with the best interests of the club. And, you know, he's a great guy, and I love him. And, you know, he's one of my favourite players that I ended up playing with, and can't really speak any more highly of him. Sorry.
Yeah, and like for someone to obviously for you to have the opportunity to play with him, at Manchester United among other great players, like again, I always say to you, it must have been just an absolute pleasure and a great experience. And I could listen to stories about Roy Keane all day. Like I always hear like stories from the Ireland setup and hear from other players playing, in the United team as well. Like it's just always great to hear. And what the constant is that he's a great professional, but also kind of a great person outside of football as well. And that's always good to hear. Just kind of touching base, Phil, in terms of Manchester United going forward, because obviously we talked about having standards and kind of accepting that we need to kind of push on and stuff like that on the kind of point of Roy Keane. But we're now pushing into a season now this weekend against Leeds United, where there's a lot of massive expectations at the football club at the moment in terms of the signings we've made. We've made 2 positive signings this summer, and Rafael Varane, Jadon Sancho, the 2 players who are going to come in and prove a team that already finished second in the league and were unbeaten away from home last year. And albeit we did lose the Europa League final, but there was a lot more positives than negatives last season. Kind of looking at the pre-season preparation that we've had coming into this season, obviously up until the Everton game, there was kind of more, I suppose, a mix of the fringe players and the young players. And then when you look at the Everton game, some of the first team players from the European Championships have been integrated back into the team, the vast majority of them. What were your thoughts on our pre-season preparation overall, and especially the Everton game? Kind of who stood out for you, and kind of who staked the claim to kind of be a starting player this Saturday?
Yeah, I think the pre-season's been, in the circumstances, it's been okay. Obviously, ideally, you'd have wanted, some of the players to maybe get a few more minutes than they have done. But as I said, the last game, obviously, the Everton game, I think, it couldn't have really gone much better in terms of you playing against a good established Premier League side. So it's not as though it wasn't a good test. We've scored 4 good goals, kept a clean sheet. And I think, obviously, the players who started the game all made an impact on the game. I don't think there was any standout performer for me in terms of anyone who really shone or stood out. But I think there was 4 great goals. I think Bruno's free kick was probably the highlight and the best goal out of the 4. But overall, you've got to take positives, and I think there was a lot of good performances. Again, Greenwood on the score sheet looked lively. Some of the players who may not start but are going to be in and around it, the likes of Matic and Mata, possibly Van der Beek, all look sharp and look like they can add something when they're called upon, maybe. And for me, I just looking forward to the start of the season now, and hopefully we can get off to a good start. I think Ollie's obviously got a few players that may come into that side from the Everton game, but on the whole, I think it looked pretty solid. So no goals against and 4 good goals. So hopefully that will give the lads a bit of confidence going into the Leeds game, and we can start the season with a 3 points and hopefully some goals. But yeah, we'll just have to see. I think obviously Ollie's got a big decision in terms of whether he starts the likes of Sancho and people like that, and we'll just have to wait and see on Saturday. For me, I would personally. I think he'll obviously be chomping at the bit to get some football after not really featuring much for England at the Euros. So I personally would give him a game if he looks good in training and there's no problems. I'd put him straight in there, but we'll just have to see. Maybe Ollie thinks maybe come on off the bench and ease him in a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, and in terms of like this as well, in terms of staking the claim, I think if you look at the midfield too, especially if he played in kind of the deeper roles in Matic and Van de Beek, I think when you look at the way Leeds play in terms of having a high intensity game, in terms of them really pressing us from the front, I think having two of them who can take the ball under pressure and kind of beat that kind of first line of the press is very important. Now, I know last year we did play Fred and McTominay in there against them at Old Trafford 1-6-2. They did do well. They did have their own strengths, but I think the way Solskjaer really wants to play more on the front foot than the counter attack this year. I think this game, when you look at in terms of the fittest midfield players we probably have at the moment, Matic and Van de Beek probably are the two fittest, because McTominay and Fred have come back late from the international break, obviously with the Euros and Copa America. And you have Paul Pogba, who is only back as well, and by the looks things is probably going to be used out wide left, judging from the setup in the second half in terms of when he did have the midfielders on. He did push Paul Pogba out wide left. With Marcus being out, I think that's a very big possibility that we do see Pogba back out there. Because look, I'm not even going to beat around the bush. I thought when Pogba did play out there last season, he did play quite well. He did do a very competent job out there. And when you look at his time at Juventus, when they did kind of play Marquisio, when they played Vidal and players like that, Pirlo, Pogba did play that role, and he did play very well in that role, and he played exceptionally well in that role last season. You look at the games like AC Milan, Fulham, Burnley at Old Trafford, and you look at he did play really well in them games. So I think he's definitely can be utilised in that role. And I think just when you look at this pre-season in terms of players, like in terms of sharpness and players to stake the claim, I know Mason Greenwood scored Saturday, but one thing that shouldn't go unnoticed with Greenwood in this pre-season was his hard work, and his grit, really. Because I think Mason Greenwood, everyone kind of recognises Mason as this kind of gilt-edge finisher. But a lot of things people sleep on with Mason is his work rate, and his ability to track back, make runs. And I seen this, I noticed over pre-season, between playing on the right and up front, that his movement and his sharpness was most definitely there. His work rate there when he was playing right wing in games was very good, especially against Everton. The amount of times I seen him to track back, win the ball, beat 1, 2, 3 players. You can see his game is ever evolving. Like, I think with Mason, you mentioned it last week, he can use the right foot, he can use the left foot, and he can go past players to like they're not there. He's ever mature and ever evolving. And Phil, when you consider the fact that Martial's only coming back from 6 months out, he's going to need time to adjust. Edison Cavani, he's obviously probably not going to be back to play the second or third game of the season. Mason in these first couple of games is going to be absolutely crucial in terms of how we score goals and create chances. And when you actually look at the way he played and the way he kind of evolved this pre-season, and the fact he's had to bulking up a bit as well, so he looks like he's there for the fight this season. I think I said this previously this week, that he's my one to watch this season in terms of all teams in the Premier League, in terms of the player who's going to really shine in terms of young players. He's getting better every year. And the fact that Jadon Sancho's at the club, a very young, creative player, and the possibility of having Jadon, Rashford, and Mason as a front three is absolutely mind-blowing, because they create so many chances. Their interchange and movement is second to none. And when you bring in a player like Jadon Sancho, who has over 40 goals and assists in terms of contributions, at a team like Borussia Dortmund, like he's going to add something to Mason's game. He's going to add something to Marcus' game. So by all means, I think Mason Greenwood definitely this season is going to be someone who's going to definitely give us a lift. And look, the fact of the matter is, I know Martial's been out for 6 months, but he's also an option. You've Cavani coming in. I think in the forward areas, we've so many different options with so many different setups. I think that's why Ollie wants to keep a big squad as well, because I know there was paper talk that Martial was going to leave. The club completely quashed that. Martial's here to stay. Like we seen, obviously last year he had his injury problems last year. I know he didn't have the best of form at some stages last year, but when you actually look at it, there was a lot of injuries that kind of hampered Martial last season. And I know he divides opinion, but you look at the previous season, he scored 25 goals under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And that was his best season under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. since he's been at the club in the last 5-6 years. Talent's definitely there. Solskjaer's got the best out of him. So I think this season, obviously, is a massive season for him because we've so many options, in these forward positions. But what I love about our options is, and I know I'll just reiterate again, it's a style of play. Like, there's so many different teams that they sit back and sit deep against us. Then there's teams who are going to open up and try to play football against us, which, in my opinion, will be to their detriment because we've seen when teams open up against us what we are capable of doing. But one thing we lacked last year because of injuries and COVID and other reasons was the ability to rotate. And this year, when you look at the options we have and the addition of Jaden, Ollie is spoiled for riches now. And I think the fact he openly said himself now, he wants to have this big squad. And the fact this preseason has also shown even the young players such as Anthony Elanga, like these are players who can come in and definitely do a job. I think when you look at United's forward options, this is probably most definitely the best combination of players in kind of the front three positions post Sir Alex Ferguson.
Yeah, I think that attacking options now, there's not really any excuse for us not to, be scoring goals and not to be rotating when it needs to be. Again, there's going to be loads and loads of games this year. There's loads of cups and stuff. So the likes of the Elangas of this world and Martial maybe when he needs to sort of get a few games to get his fitness back up. There's going to be plenty of games. They're all going to be coming thick and fast. So as you say, Ollie's going to be spoiled for choice. When everyone's fully fit, it's going to be a difficult choice.
I would not like to be him. I would not like to be making that decision because you're players.
You wouldn't, but I think it's a good headache for us to have because in previous years, we've been scraping the barrel at times with, players and not having enough depth in the squad with the amount of games that's coming and players burning out because they've been playing, consecutive games after games after games. Whereas now we've got a bit more of a luxury to say, right, we can dip players in and out and you can maybe give someone a rest who needs it. So yeah, I think obviously it's going to be a great season if everyone can get fit and hit the ground running. As I said, Sancho's somebody who I think is going to be a massive player for us this year. He must be chomping at the bit. As I said, he didn't really play a lot in the Euros, considering how well he did at Dortmund, which was probably be a bit disappointing for him personally. But yeah, I think he'd be someone who once he gets going and gets sort of at Old Trafford and the fans and all that kind of thing, it'd be amazing. And I'm looking forward to, watching some of the players. You said Greenwood, Martial, Rashford, Cavani, Martial, it's all going to be, exciting and some of the style of football that's going to be played. I think it's, going to be good times ahead for, the fans and for any United fan who's going to be watching. It's going to be exciting. So looking forward to seeing what the season brings.
Most definitely. And I just want to throw it out there as well because we've mentioned kind of young players. You've obviously come through the academy. You've seen great players. I'm loving the current state of the academy since Solskjaer came in. He's really rejuvenated. And you look at the other forward players who are there to come up in years to come. You have like Hannibal, Thierry, Charlie McNeil, Joe Hugel. There's so many class forward players coming through that these players who are starting there now, they're looking over their backs now because, as Carrington always does and the Cliff does, Phil, it produces gems. And looks like since Ollie's come in, obviously John Murtaugh, Nicky Butt, people who were really involved in the academy setup in the kind of the last couple of years. It's probably in the best state it's been since 2011 when we did produce that FAU winning cup team. Obviously when we had the likes of Pogba, Lingard, Ravel Morrison, the Keane brothers, Sam Johnstone, like that was a very good youth team. That's probably the last great youth team we've had. Obviously, years previous, we've had really good youth teams consistently. But I think right now, in saying the last decade, this is probably the most stable that our academy's been. And you're looking at the players in the last 5-6 years who've come through. McTominay, Rashford, Greenwood, Brandon Williams, James Garner coming through now as well. The club's in a really healthy place. And a lot of this is down to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Yeah,
it is. And I think there's obviously, the players you just named there. It's like a conveyor belt of good players at the moment. And whether that's to, come in and be challenging to get into the first team or whether, some of them maybe go out on loan and get some, experience elsewhere, which, is invaluable, I think, as a young player. Going playing in, competitive games that mean something at good clubs, whether it be in the Championship or, somewhere else. I think that'd be something that, possibly they could be looking at this moment in time. But yeah, as you say, at the moment, the club's in a great place. We've got great signings this transfer window. As you said, the academy's producing some great players. There's lads there in the reserves who are maybe knocking on the door of, getting involved with the first team, maybe played a few games in pre-season and done well. So yeah, overall, it's looking really good, and the future's bright, as you say. So hopefully we can start the season well, and some of these young lads may end up getting opportunities in the Carabao Cup, which is although it's not the Premier League or the Champions League or whatever, them games that you end up playing for Manchester United, you've got to cherish them and you've got to take your chance, and they don't always come along that often. So when you do get that opportunity, you've got to try and obviously make a statement and do well, because you're not going to keep getting chance after chance after chance, especially at a big club like Man United. You've got to sort of take one of them chances somewhere down the line, otherwise you'll end up sort of falling by the wayside and maybe having to go elsewhere. So yeah, just looking forward though to seeing some of these young prospects that are coming through, and hopefully some of them will end up getting an opportunity, because I'm sure Ollie's going to be wanting them to push into that first team. He likes the youth. He's dealt with the reserves when I was there, and he loves to see young talented players coming in and mixing with the first team, because it only makes you a better player when you play with them better players. So
when you look at the likes of Hannibal and Shore Thierry and players like that coming in, and they're looking at a player like Paul Pogba, Bruno Fernandes, that'll only help their development. And you still have the older guard there in Juan Mata and Nemanja Matic, who were very experienced and have won a lot of trophies. And the fact that Ollie's there as manager, who has that experience of managing the reserves, being that link between the academy and first team, he's someone who will definitely help that kind of pathway. And I think, again, as I said, I'll just reiterate, it's the most stable our academy has been in a long time. And obviously there's been other appointments. Obviously Eric Ramsey's come in as our set piece coach, but also like he worked with Chelsea's under 23s. That's obviously going to be an invaluable appointment. And obviously Justin Crocaine, who was also at Tottenham, he's also going to be there doing that kind of link between the first team and the academy. And look, he's been highly thought of. Obviously across the FA, they want him to take, I believe it was like the England under 21 job recently as well. Obviously United have got him instead. So like when you look at that situation, the club, the plans are in place, and people can talk about rebuild and cultural and one phrase that gets thrown around is cultural reboot. We have done that, and you can see that in the last 3.5 years in Solskjaer's tenure. A lot of things have changed. The one thing has remained stay the same is we're trying to be Manchester United first and foremost, and that is where I really do applaud the manager for being the driving force behind that. Obviously, Phil, this weekend is our opening fixture against Leeds. For anyone who's a Man United fan knows how big this fixture is for the fans, the players, everyone in the football club. You've been at the football club. You've played against Leeds United yourself at Manchester United. Just kind of talk to us about the rivalry between Manchester United and Leeds United and kind of what it means.
Massive. It's probably as big as it gets, other than Liverpool and Man City. Leeds is up there with one of the most fierce rivalries. I obviously remember playing in some of the youth games and the reserve team games and stuff, and the tackles was flying in. Everyone wanted to win. It was the passion, and it's no different. I think obviously because Leeds have been not at the top level for so long. There's always been the rivalry still been there, but because we've obviously never got a chance to play them as regular as we used to, it's been sort of put on hold a little bit. But now with packed out Old Trafford on Saturday, fans are allowed back in, and it's the opening game of the season. Both teams will obviously want to start the season well. I think it'll be amazing. The atmosphere will be unbelievable, and I'm envious for people who are obviously going watching that game. I'd love to be there myself. Yeah, I'd love to be there myself, just to for the atmosphere, and I think it'll be a great game. I can't lie, and I do actually like the way Leeds play. I'm a bit of a fan in terms of the way the Bielsa sets them up, and they don't change. They're an attacking side, and I think it'd be a great game. Obviously, it should play into our hands as it did last year with the amount of goals we scored, but you can never really tell because Leeds are one of them teams where they never give in, they keep going, and obviously, they shocked a few teams last year with that style of play. I think they beat City away and stuff like that. So
the 4-3 game at Anfield as well last year was one of the best games this season.
Yeah, so they have got that kind of result in the locker, so we have to be careful and pay the respect that they're due and make sure that we turn up, and hopefully we can get the 3 points, and that'll be the start of many wins. And got to try and make Old Trafford a fortress again. For me, I think last year the away form was unbelievable, but a few of the results at Old Trafford didn't. And over the past sort of 5-6 years for me, we've dropped points at home against teams, whereas obviously when I was there and I used to go and watch a lot more than I can now, I can't really remember many games where I'd go and we'd lose or drop points to teams that we shouldn't have done, and it was like a fortress every time teams coming to Old Trafford. It was like, how many we're going to get beat by, not
the game be lost in the tunnel for the opposition. They know what they're coming up against. Yeah. I think that feeling needs to come back. I think that fear factor of Old Trafford needs to come back, especially if we're going to challenge for a title. I think if that waveform can be maintained, that's fantastic, because that'll help you on the way to winning a title. But your home form is your bread and butter. Like, that's where you really need to cement that home form. When that fear factor is there, especially with the attacking options we have, Old Trafford should be a place where everyone is absolutely terrified to come to.
I agree, mate. And as I say, there with the attacking options we've got this year, the amount of goals that we should be scoring be frightening. So if we can get off to a good start and put teams to the sword like we're capable of, as I say, we play Everton there on Saturday. I know it was only pre-season, but 4-0 against a decent side, and that should make the team sort of think, oh well, United look good, and I don't want to be going to Old Trafford this week. And hopefully, as I say, we can start the season well and make Old Trafford a fortress, because as you said, if we do get the home form sorted, the away games, I think the way we set up and the way we can play and be a bit more adaptable, I think we will pick up points on the road. I think it's just, as I said, the home form will inevitably be what's going to be the key to our title challenge this year. I think if we can make it a fortress and beat the teams that we shouldn't be dropping points to, I can't see why we shouldn't be there or thereabouts.
Yeah, 100%. And we will touch at the end. We will touch on our expectations for the season and what we expect to do in terms of trophies, etc. Ollie had an interview today that was recently released by Sky Sports in terms of the season and stuff like that. He touched on in the interview in terms of the transfer window. Obviously, we signed Sancho, we signed Varane, two very good signings and two players who walk into our team when they're both fully fit. No illusions under that. He mentioned that potentially one more player could be coming in before the end of the window. That don't count that one more player could be coming in. Now, we're not going to mention specifics because obviously other clubs have players. We're not going to speak about who essentially we'd like to come in, because obviously you don't do that. But in terms of what position should be strengthened, what do you think is most crucial with kind of the first team, and where do we need to strengthen to kind of really make a push this season? What one position with this one player would you get?
For me, with the signings we've made, I think it's just the CDM now. I think if we can get someone who's sitting in front of the back four and doing a job like a Kante or someone like that, then for me that'd be the missing piece of the jigsaw. And although we have got players who can play in that position, for me, if you're looking to sort of challenge and be in and around it for all the competitions, you need that sort of player who can really break up the play, break the lines, not just do the basics. And I think for me, if we did get someone like a world class player in that position, then for me every box is ticked in terms of world class options in every position. So for me, that would be the one position I think we could maybe still strengthen in. And if there is another player coming in, that'd be my main area really that I'd be focusing on if I was Ollie. He may think differently to that, but for me, I think if we can get someone in that position, then for me, I think we'd be in the conversation along with probably City with the strongest squads in the Premier League this year.
Yeah, definitely. I echo that in terms of that central midfield position. I think definitely someone like you mentioned, Kante, kind of this destroyer. In that actually role, I actually think differently. I think a player in the ilk of a Michael Carrick, who can kind of break the lines with the passes and has the capability to receive the ball from the back four and help dictate. That type of player for me would be perfect, especially when you look at kind of the talks that are coming out this season that we're going to go to a 4-3-3 potentially. If that's the case, I think we need that deep line midfield player that can take that ball under pressure from the centre backs. Because let's face it, when you have Varane and Maguire, them two are going to step out from the back, and they will want to play ball. If you're playing that formation and you do have them to ball playing centre backs, you do need someone who's capable of taking the ball off them under pressure. Because one thing, especially look, we see it against Leeds on the weekend, and you'll see from some teams in the league, they like to press high, and their first phase, the press, is where we got caught a couple of times last season in some of the goals we did concede, especially at home. And when you look at the amount of times we came back from behind last season, you go back and watch them games, a lot of that came from some of the mistakes that came out from the back.
Goal against Leicester sticks out in my head, when the ball gets played into Fred and he tries to sort of play it around the corner and it gets cut out, and
he literally passed it to Ian Nacho.
Yeah. So as you say, yeah, I agree in that respect in terms of having someone who can break the lines and be comfortable on the ball, because if you can get someone who can do that and they can feed the balls into the likes of Bruno and Pogba and Sancho and Grealish and people like that, then for me, that kind of service for them would be perfect. And if we can get a player who can do that as well as break up the play, then that's some team. And I think if Ollie can get someone who's sort of in that ilk over the line before the end of the transfer window, then that'd be an amazing sort of bit of business for not only the club but for everyone else, because I think they'd revel in that kind of player who could do that, and I think it'd only benefit the club moving forward.
Definitely. And I'm actually going to throw one at you. It wasn't on topics, but I'll throw a question at you with this. Donny van de Beek has bulked up in this past summer. He looks like he's on a regime, and he did play that role at Ajax. Let's say for all harm's sake, we can't get a deal over the line. Do you think maybe would he be capable to do that role?
I mentioned it, I think, on one of the other shows we did, and I said I think it'd be a big season for him this year, because for me, he's not really been given that first crack of the whip yet. He's not been given a run of games. I don't think he's sort of, for one reason or another, been sort of Ollie's favourite, if you like, in that position. But for me, yeah, if there's nobody else who they sign in this, next couple of weeks, then I think without a doubt you give him a chance. And he's played at Ajax. He's got to be comfortable on the ball. He's played at the top level. Obviously, he's come through that Ajax team who, the kind of football they play is, you've got to be comfortable on the ball or, you get found out. So for me, yeah, I think Donny's going to have a big season this year. And if he can start the season maybe with a couple of games and do well, then that role could maybe, be his to sort of to give away. But yeah, I think he's more than capable of playing in that position, and I think he's deserved the opportunity for the amount of time he's waited. Really, he's been patient, and he's not really spat a dummy out, or he's not done anything, when he could have maybe, he signed for a big fee. He's come in from Ajax where he probably thought he was going to be, nailed on to start, and he's not maybe had the sort of start at United that he thought he was going to have. But now I think, after this, last season where he's not played much, I think this year could be the one for him where he really sort of steps up to the mark and puts a marker down and says, listen, I've arrived. And I hope, I think he's got all the capabilities to play in there, and I hope he gets the chance to show everyone what he can do, yeah.
When you look at the centre-back partnership of Varane and Maguire, it could give us the license to play him there. I was speaking with a fan a couple of days ago, a United fan, and they actually pointed out to me is that Solskjaer has, especially against the teams who sit back, because you have two top centre-backs in Varane and Maguire, you could play that midfield three of Donny and Bruno and Paul Pogba. Like it is a possibility against these teams who, look, let's face it, are going to sitting on the 18-yard line and invite pressure. Why not? Especially in them games, obviously, we've different midfielders like McTominay, Nemanja Matic, Fred. All these players have their own individual qualities for certain games. But against the teams who sit back and soak up pressure, why not? Why not play that midfield three when you know, like you have, he said Vidic and Ferdinand there, I nearly said Vidic and Ferdinand. When you have Harry Maguire and Raphael Varane behind you, you have security back there. You've, in my opinion, at the moment, the best fullback in the world, and Luke Shaw there. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is very good defensively most of the time. Why not?
I think this season as well, what's going to be a big sort of factor is now we don't really need to have that overprotection at the back, because for me, Maguire and Varane, the two world-class centre-halves, you don't need the likes of Fred and McTominay sitting in front of him to protect that back four. Last year, maybe when Lindelof was there, yeah, you can understand a little bit at times why Ollie did go a little bit safe and maybe wanted to sort of protect a little bit more. But now, for me, there's no excuses. There's no reason to, especially against the lesser teams and teams, as you said, that are just going to sit in to not go a little bit more expansive and play them kind of players that can unlock a defence and break the lines and play forward and not just safe side-to-side football. So for me, yeah, as you say, Van der Beek, that could be a role that he steps into. If Ollie's obviously going to give him that opportunity, I think, he's more than capable of taking it, and fingers crossed for him that he can do well there for me.
Definitely. And there's one thing I'd like to mention as well that I want to see this season, because obviously rotation is going to be key. I'd like to see McTominay played a bit further forward this season, because he scored 7 goals last season. He was very good arriving late into the box, especially, funnily enough, against our opponents this week in Leeds United. He was fantastic in that game. And obviously, you look at the FA Cup against West Ham. Again, he is naturally a box-to-box midfielder, and he's quick, he's strong. He has a good shot in him. I know if we do sign that defensive-minded midfield player, that when McTominay's used, that he's given the license to go further forward, because he did show on numerous occasions last year when he's in the box, he's a goal threat. So I'd like him to see kind of push further with that side of his game, because I think some of the criticism you get sometimes is unwarranted, because he's consistently evolving. And technically last year he was playing out of position. So for me, I'd like to see, especially against teams that sit back, and if he gets a game, if he starts, play him further forward, let him get into the box, let him be that goal threat.
Yeah, I think he's, as I said, there's going to be a lot of games this year, and he's somebody who, he will be a big part. We will have a big part to play. I don't think he'll start all the games, but as you say, when he does play, you know what you're going to get from McTominay. His work rate second to none. He's comfortable on the ball, and as you say, yeah, some of the goals he scored last season, he looks a threat when he's in and around the box. So for me, if he does get the opportunity to play further forward, then he's shown what he can do, and as you say, he's got a good strike on him, and he looks like he can finish when the chances arrive. So yeah, hopefully he can get given that opportunity at some point, and hopefully he can take it and see how that pans out. But there's plenty of games. I think he will get his fair share of games. So yeah, he'll have plenty of time to do it.
The manager trusts him as well. You can see that. I think that was emphasised when we had the Europa League final, and he abandoned going with that usual partnership, McTominay and Fred, and he started McTominay and Pogba. McTominay was I don't care what anyone says, McTominay was the best player on the football pitch that day. He deserved the winner's medal for that performance, albeit we lost. But he was absolutely amazing on the day, for us that day. So, look, someone who I hope to see prosper, get better, and hopefully, that comes along with winning a trophy or two next season, which is something we're going to segue into right now. Expectations for next season. Obviously, last couple of years under Ollie, finished third, finished second. In my opinion, both seasons he done very well to finish in both positions. Now we've obviously got Sancho, we've got Varane in. Expectations within the fan base seems to be that bit kind of higher because we brought in two best in class. Those signings in Sancho and Varane, potentially a midfielder coming in maybe by the end of the window. In terms of where your expectation is at as a Manchester United fan and former player of the football club, with the current squad we have now, considering where our kind of rivals are in terms of where their transfer business is as well, where's your expectations for Manchester United next season in terms of trophies and kind of league position next year?
I think my expectation is just to have another good season. As I say, I wouldn't be devastated if we didn't win the Premier League this year. I think we need to be in the conversation. I think we definitely sort of, I've got the squad now and the players to challenge. And for me, if we're sort of there or thereabouts come the end of the season, then I think that'll show again that we're making a step in the right direction. I do think though we need to get a trophy of some sort this year, whether it's a FA Cup or something. I just think it'll be a massive sort of monkey off the back, if you like, for Ollie, because I think we need that trophy just to sort of see some sort of progress in terms of you judged off winning trophies for me, and if you're not winning trophies and you get into semi-finals and finals and not quite doing it, then nobody really remembers you got to a final. It's if you won a trophy. So I think this year for me, if we're there or thereabouts in the Prem, and if we can win a trophy, whether it be a domestic one or if we can have a good go in the Champions League and maybe get to that final and maybe upset somebody there, then for me that'd be showing another step in the right direction and another sort of step to where we want to be moving forward.
Definitely. I think, look, I echo that. I think for me, I think we need to be thereabouts come late April, early May, and when it's getting to the real running. I think that would signify progress. Now, if we get that defensive midfielder, and I'm saying it straight out now, I think the title challenge has to be a must, because you have a best in class in every single position and you have specialists in every single position. Why not go for the league? 100%. I think definitely a domestic trophy, whether it's the FA Cup or League Cup next year, is definitely achievable. When you actually look at Ollie's cup draws as manager, he's been on for, well, I know you have to beat the best teams to win any competition. You're eventually going to have to face them at some point. But if you actually look at his cup draws since he's been a manager at Man United, we've drawn more or less all the top teams. We've drawn City, we've drawn Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Everton, Spurs. We didn't actually draw Spurs under Ollie, but we Leicester. We've drawn all the best teams. More often than not, we've beat all of them, bar Manchester City. Literally, we've Manchester City in the League Cup the last 2 years have been they've knocked us out. Look, they're the best at the moment. Let's call a spade here. They've been the best team in the country the last couple of years, bar obviously the year Liverpool won the league, but they've been the best in the last couple of years, and there's no shame in losing to Pep Guardiola. There's no shame at all. Ollie's record, to be fair, if you actually look at his time at the club, it's quite good in the league against Pep. It was just in the Carabao Cup 2 seasons running. Unfortunately, we've been eliminated by Pep Guardiola. I think it's very achievable for us to win one of the domestic trophies. Now, if we can do it the hard way, that'd be great because he's got all hard cup draws. And at Manchester United, you want to win every trophy. I think it's very possible. Whether it's a hard draw or we get the rub of the green and we get the lesser teams on the way. Whatever way it happens, I don't mind. I just want to see us be battling for the trophies. And a day out in Wembley, winning a trophy and really stamping out kind of progress. And because there's a lot of young players, this football club, who haven't won something yet. And I think when I liken this to 2006, when Sir Alex was doing that rebuild in 2006, like obviously the likes of Keane left the club, Beckham was gone for a couple of years. He introduced Rooney, Ronaldo. Obviously he had the likes of Nemanja Vidic, Patrice Evra coming in. Louis Saha was coming in as a striker that time because Rude was leaving the club at that time. All he's done a rebuilding process and introduced all these new players post Jose Mourinho and Louis van Gaal. I think if Solskjaer wins a trophy, whether it be the League Cup, FA Cup, or even do what Chelsea done last year, win the Champions League, that signifies progress. And what that does is it enlightens players where they're going to get that taste for success and they're going to want more, they're going to be hungrier. And, pressure creates diamonds. And I think when you look at this situation, winning a trophy next season will be massive. No, regardless of what it is, whether it's a league or one of the domestic cups or in Europe, it's massive.
Yeah, 100%. I think what you just touched on there in terms of getting a taste for success, I think that is a massive sort of thing that you just mentioned there. Because for me, when I was at the club, I remember all the first team players, and you never get bored of that winning feeling and winning a trophy and getting that winner's medal. It sort of like drives you on then to do it again the season after. And I think once you get into a habit of winner's mentality and getting trophies and becoming that elite mentality to win at all costs, I think that is where we're at the moment, as you said, because we've not won a trophy for so long now. We're in that bit of a sort of time where we need to just get any trophy over the line, and then that could be the sort of stem that we could then kick on, and that could be the start of hopefully a fruitful couple of seasons where we do end up winning 2 and 3, and then maybe go on a run and we're back into the mix where United need to be, and that's challenging for trophies year in, year out. So yeah, as you say there, that could be something that hopefully will happen this year. We can get a trophy, and that could then give them young players that taste, and obviously they've got plenty of time to establish themselves and kicking on and keep progressing. But if you win a trophy, that's a massive sort of part of becoming a top player and wanting to keep doing it year after year after year.
And it kickstarts their careers, and it really they won't look back from that point. Because one thing Ollie mentioned when we lost the Europa League final, he said to the players, "We do not want to feel like this again." I think the Europa League loss, where yes, it was heartbreaking. Yes, losing the final isn't nice, but sometimes you need them moments for when the bigger moments happen. They're that much sweeter. So hopefully we can kick on this season. Personally, I'd love to win the league, 100%. Look, as a Manchester United fan, win the league's your bread and butter. That's what we're about. Being successful in Europe, obviously, as well. But if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, if you said to me the day Sir Alex Ferguson retired, in 2013, that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to be the first manager to deliver the Premier League back to Old Trafford, I would have loved that, because obviously he's someone who lives and breathes his football club. And look, that's not me dismissing any of the previous managers we had in that time. Mourinho, Moyes, Van Gaal, all good managers in their own right. And look, they are respectable and they have done those great things as managers themselves. But a Manchester United man bringing the league back after Sir Alex, it would mean that bit more. I know we've won trophies since Sir Alex left, like League Cup, obviously the FA Cup and Europa League, but we haven't won the title yet, post Sir Alex. And if Ollie can bring that to the club, it would be absolutely amazing, and it would kickstart to a new era at Manchester United, and it would be something that fans will hold close to their hearts because Ollie's relationship with the Manchester United fans. I think it'd be a very sweet moment.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you said to me this year you can win one trophy, I think I'd set the league title all day long, just because obviously it's been so long, and as you say, post Sir Alex, there's not been anyone that's been able to, bring that back to Old Trafford. And as you say, with the connection with the fans from Ollie, who loves the club, he's Man United through and through, and I think it would be amazing for someone like him to bring that back. And then hopefully that'd be the kickstart of many more to come, type of thing. So yeah, I agree, and I think any cup this year would be a step in the right direction. But yeah, the league would be sweet. I think that would probably be most fans' sort of choice if they could choose what cup they'd want to bring back. I think that would be the main one for me.
Yeah, most definitely. I echo that 100% myself. And on that note, guys, we're going to wrap up today's podcast. Thanks very much again to Phil, as always, for coming on the podcast here today. And it's been very enjoyable. And look, for everyone that's watching, I hope you all enjoy your weekend. Premier League football is back. Manchester United are back. Full house, Old Trafford on Saturday. I absolutely cannot wait. I'm absolutely buzzing. Just obviously for our viewers as well, do check out our website at www.talkofdevils.co.uk. There is a piece, I know we're talking about Roy Keane on the podcast. There is a great piece up about Roy Keane on the podcast. His 50th birthday this week. Do check that out on www.talkofdevils.co.uk. And also check out our podcasts on Spotify, as we did run a podcast this week with Michael Knighton this week. Check it out on our audio platforms, on Spotify and our other audio platforms. And also, don't forget to drop a like in the video, hit the subscribe button as well, and hit that bell notification as well, because every time we go live, whether it's this podcast or Wayne with the Paul Parker podcast or whatever guests we do have here on the channel, you'll be first to know, and it'll pop up on your smartphone, tablet, or any other device you have you're logged into YouTube on. So do check that out as well. And as always, thanks very much for listening, guys, and we'll be back next week.